So welcome to the Connection podcast series. We are sitting down with Mike Introna, and this is the third of a series that we're looking at various aspects of the modern box plant and how businesses are adapting during these periods of change. So Mike, thank you for joining us once again. Today, I'd like to look at the ramifications of this funny transition from moving from the busy December months through into the new year. Traditionally, there's always a little bit of a lag and a bit of a fall off, but Mike, let's look at some of the basic fundamentals that box plants should be looking at. Very specifically, you starting looking at the data management, the overall processes that we might be using within our facilities, and also looking at people. Obviously, people is very important. So, Mike, just give us a little sort of overview as to how you used to manage that awful transition from December into January.
Good morning, Dan. The three things that I talk to people a lot is people, it's data, it's process. So data, let's start with data. I mean, the first thing is making sure your data is accurate. Certainly when we're measuring performance, be that financial or commercial performance or operational performance, people can use different measures, and it's making sure that you understand in absolute terms what's happening, as well as maybe in any sort of modified measure that people use. I mean, OEE, operational equipment effectiveness, is a classic one where some people use modified numbers. They amend the hours that are being covered. They take into account the type of work or work mix, etc., etc., etc. The trouble is that the danger with things like that is you can easily get lost. And if you're using absolute numbers, if you're using a 7-day, 24-hour-a-week measure, and then you're looking at how much uptime you've got and then how you perform during that uptime, then you can't go wrong. The numbers are ultimately lower, but they're accurate and there's something to work from. And whether you're trying to improve by 5 or 10% from a number that's 20% or 25, or whether you're trying to improve 10%, 5% from a number that says 50, it's still the same amount of improvement. But some people get hung up on what the actual number is. The important thing is the number improving, and also, is it accurate, and what does that mean for the commercial impact on the business? And we can, in production, the obvious numbers that people think about are output, their run speeds. But all too often, what does get missed is how much downtime there is. And that's probably the biggest factor that I've always focused on initially in businesses, and also in this busier period coming up. Just stop the stops is a sort of term that I use quite often. Let's just stop the stops. Stop the stops, remove the excuses, or remove the reasons sometimes. But often them reasons can just be excuses. But downtime. We often see downtime recorded at 15%, 10%, 20%, when actually it's probably nearer 50 in a lot of cases, particularly in converting equipment, which essentially is a batch process. Even in corrugating, which really is a continuous process, the downtime is often above 10%, and it's really, really significant, the impact that you can make. So let's understand what the downtime is, and let's look at what the big issues are. And you will often make much greater inroads taking your downtime to task and making a 5% overall improvement in downtime reduction than you will in just trying to flog a dead horse on a machine and just going out and challenging people to run faster. Yep, there are times when things need to run faster, and we've all seen those jobs, nice easy jobs, 20,000 run of this, nice sweet spot for the machine, fairly simple print and cutting, and it can be ramped up. But part of that is encouraging your people to do it, which also comes back to that. If the people see that all you're going to do is come on the shop floor and talk to them about run speeds and run faster and do this and do that, when they can see all the downtime issues that there are in the business, whether it's getting the materials to the machine on time, whether it's getting the support services, the inks, the cutting tools and whatever it might be to the machine, or whether it's just making sure that the machine's adequately maintained so that they're not constantly having small stops, they're not having issues with pre-feeders or feeds or folding sections or ink units or whatever it might be. If they can see that you're serious about dealing with the issues for them, then they'll be more responsive to engaging with you on pushing things. So yeah, data, understanding exactly where you are and being honest about that. Looking at your processes in terms of, the board coming into machines, how it runs through machines, have we got the settings right, temperatures right, are the calibrations done on the machines, etc., etc., etc. All those sorts of things. They will all help you if you're dealing with them in terms of people and people engagement.
So Mike, we're sitting here in the first week of January. We've managed to all get through Christmas, hopefully unscarred. But traditionally, that sort of tail half of November and the first couple of weeks of December, where most box plants are running pretty much 24/7, they're running flat out. Would it be fair to say that in most plants that there is this tendency to possibly overlook some of the basic maintenance side of things purely to keep the uptime there? You're sitting with a very full order book and probably not enough hours in the day. So how important is it that when we're sitting in January now, I mean, there's typically going to be possibly a tail off in some of the demand. Is this a time where we need to be looking at trying to catch up with the bits that we missed out on in November and December?
Personally, I believe so, yeah. I think once you get into that busy period of November, December, particularly if you're quite heavily focused in sort of food and FMCG as part of your customer base, then the pressure can be really, really significant, and there is a lot of pressure then to cut back on maintenance time, etc. And I think you've got to be pragmatic. There's customers at the end of it, and you may have hopefully fairly robust asset care procedures for your machines, whether that's cleaning or engineering maintenance. And if you do, that'll often allow you a little bit of a maintenance holiday, if you like, during those busier periods where you either will postpone some asset care or maybe reduce it from maybe a typical 6 to 8 hours a week down to 3 to 4 hours, something like that, for a few weeks, and you can get away with it. The difficulty comes if you don't have a reasonably rigorous asset care program, because you get into that period and you try to run 24/7, and often it's at that busiest time where you can have things fail and you get let down, and then you're letting down customers. But that said, let's hope that we've all got through Christmas and the run up to Christmas, and yeah, I know all too well how difficult that can be. And we're now looking into January. We've got a bright new year ahead of us, and then suddenly the sales fall off the edge of a cliff by the time January comes and into February. But the thing to look forward to is that, depending when Easter is, generally you get into mid-March and things start to pick up. We get the first buds of spring and things start to pick up even more. We get some sunshine and people are buying a little bit more, and we get out of those doldrums of January and February where people have stopped buying and we're all trying to diet and everything else. But the difficult thing for us all is that often those are times when turnover is probably at its lowest, because the market tends to dip often by as much as 15-20%, depending on what your work mix is in your business. And it is very understandable that people will say, well, we need to reduce our spending. And depending on the annual results for the business, I can understand that completely. But certainly you do see And I think we're seeing it with some of the independents, whether that's investment in kit, but you see a different approach from some people that is, right, let's use this time to look at our equipment, review where we are, refurbish anything that needs refurbishing. Let's do some deep cleaning. Let's perhaps do some training so that, you know, if we do have any spikes in COVID or other extraordinary circumstances in the coming year, we're not into that situation where we haven't got enough people to drive plant trucks or we haven't got enough people to run our case maker. Let's do some training and get some people on the ladder to becoming more senior in their operating environment. That alone does a lot of good, because, you know, people see that you're investing in them and you spend some time in them, they'll pay it back, or it's easier to go and ask them to pay it back, you know, in a very, you know, in a positive way, and you will get that payback. It's all part of that, you know, managing your team and managing your people. But if you're doing that, you're in a position that when that ramp up starts, and there will be that ramp up in the spring, but also with what's happening out in the wide world with vaccines and everything else, hopefully there's going to be a little bit of a double kick as there's more confidence that we can get back to a more normal lifestyle. And hopefully, you know, as I say, there'll be that double kick of a ramp up in the spring. And those that are ready to run are going to be the ones that make the most gains. And those that aren't or haven't used the time carefully or expeditiously, then they're the ones that are going to struggle. And I dare I say it, it's the independents that will take advantage of that if they're the ones that are able to respond to customers' needs and also support those customers that have been let down.
And Mike, it's very interesting. You were talking there about the speed or the aggressive nature that a lot of independents take in terms of using January and February as that opportunity for you know, the deep cleaning, the investments, etc. But I think what's been really noticeable, I mean, we've seen it just in the trade press alone. You know, statements coming out from some of the equipment manufacturers saying, you know, they've had very, very solid order books in October, November, and December. And it seems to be that a lot of those announcements are coming from independent box plants who are investing in machines, whether it's new case makers, whether it's you know, whether it's rotary die cutters, etc., etc. But they're all looking to put these machines in during sort of late spring, early summer. Do you think that's very typical of the independents? You know, to have that very aggressive stance.
I think so. I think you see it with a number of them, that they recognise that the way to grow their business is to make their customers happy and make sure that they can give customers what those customers need, or even better, if they can anticipate what those customers are going to need in the future and make investments based around that. And again, it doesn't have to be huge. Not everybody's going to go out there and buy a 7-8 colour, all singing, all dancing rotary die cutter from, you know, one of the top line manufacturers. You know, there's some pretty good equipment out there that's at sensible money that people are using. And some of the independent box plants, you see it, they're bringing in equipment and it's just upgrading them as a business. And there's quite a lot of them. And if it's not just equipment, then they're looking at laying down extra warehousing capacity. Quite a number of people are doing that at the moment. So that they're able to make sure that they're going to be in a position that they can respond to what customers need at short notice. And that's the way the world's going. We've talked about, you know, the fragmentation in the marketplace, and that also extends into, you know, the just-in-time philosophies. I mean, that's just becoming more and more acute. And I think everybody's going to be in a similar boat. Customers and retailers, money's tight. They're all being challenged by the online suppliers and providers. So the more traditional retailers, they're finding things are tight. So they're not going to be wanting to hold lots of stock. They're going to want, you know, us to do it for them. And so it's interesting to see that it's not just equipment that people are investing in, it's also warehouse space and logistics improvements.
And Mike, earlier you were talking a little bit about people. traditionally that busy period, October, November, December, the box plants are sort of scrabbling around trying to backfill and trying to get, junior operators and just general warehouse operators, et cetera, et cetera. But then on the flip side, here we are in January, they're probably trying to get rid of them as fast as they possibly can to try and, reduce the sort of like the wage bill, as it were. I mean, do you think that's a bit short-sighted, bit of a loss leader, letting go of people?
It can be. I mean, it can be. If you're going to take the view that, well, right, we'll get rid of some people in January and then we'll recruit some more in May. By May, it's too late, because even to have them doing anything remotely that contributes to the running of a shop floor, it's going to take them 2-3 months to get up to any sort of speed. By which time you're into your busy, getting ready for autumn and your busy period again. By the time that we get them up to speed, we're back into January and thinking about what we're going to do with all these people. I think there are options for companies, and that's looking at the way that people work and having a bit more flexible working, so that we can look at maybe more holidays in the quieter periods, or changing the working patterns so that people work less hours in the quiet periods and more hours in the busy periods. That can help, because obviously in the busier periods you've got people on site for longer, you're not using as much overtime during that time as well. So that's one option that people can look at, and there are a variety of ways that you can do that, and there are a variety of people out there that can help you with those sorts of things. Some will cost you an arm and a leg, and some are a lot more sensible. But yeah, that's one way. And the other thing is that if your workforce see that that's how you're operating, and that, it's tough, isn't it? We're all in a business where costs are key, but it's how we manage those costs. And if the workforce see that they are just a cost, there's lots of people talk about engagement, etc., etc., but the workforces around the country aren't daft. They know whether they're being thought of properly, and if they're being, I wouldn't say just looked after, because that's not the right word I'm looking for, but if they're managed correctly and they can see that they're valued and they're not just cast out when, at certain times of the year, or they get to a certain age, or whatever it might be, then the rest of the workforce will see that and respond to that, because the stories are all out there about how people are being treated in the current climate, how people are treated in other industries. And if they think that their employer is a good employer, then almost invariably you will get more out of that workforce for that employer. They'll want to work for that employer, and they'll want to deliver, because they want more of what they're getting. So yeah, it's an interesting facet, if you like, of running a business.
And Mike, we've touched on this on one of our previous podcasts, but I think as an industry, we're not particularly appealing. We're not a sexy industry, and we're not necessarily attracting the bright new talent. And I think just to sort of reinforce what you were talking about there, is when we're looking at these new machines and these new processes, whether it's digital printing, whether it's ultra short run box making, etc. I think that the new equipment, and particularly with Industry 4.0, as an industry, we should be very much engaging with our people and explaining to them, you're not just a dirty die cutter operator. You are part of a moving, living, breathing supplier of corrugated packaging.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what do you think, the sort of the modern box plant should be doing to look at sort of retaining that enthusiasm and retaining this sort of youthful opportunity for us?
Well, I think we have to recognise that if you're talking now about some of the high-speed mini line case maker lines that you have now, and they've got gap control, they've got glue systems, they've got ink systems, they've got quality systems built in, waste and defect identification systems, as well as their preset and this, and then you've got your material handling systems all automated coming in, and you're wanting them to run at over 20,000 feeds an hour. and there might only be 2 of them on the machine, and sometimes not even that. It's a pretty demanding job now, and having people of the right intellect and bringing people in with the right sort of attitude is really important and can make a huge difference. So being able to recruit and encourage young people into your business, for me, is key for any business being successful. And it is difficult because you talk to kids. We said it before. You talk to kids at a college or at the careers fairs, and you talk about cardboard box factory. They run a mile. They'll go and go to British Aerospace or the Rolls-Royce stand or wherever it is, somewhere that's nice and sexy, or Google or whatever it might be. Because all too often, their aim now is quite different, perhaps, to what ours were when we were 16 and 18 and 21, or whatever age we might be when we come out of education. But the key thing is selling the technology that's in the industry, selling the dynamics that are in the industry. And it is an interesting industry. I mean, I came out of power generation into corrugated. I was astounded, absolutely astounded at the breadth that there is in the industry, and it's selling that. But sometimes maybe it's not always trying to go out and find undergraduates and university graduates to fill every position. We had a terrific arrangement with a local engineering school. So we were bringing in kids who had just done a level 3, so they'd done vocational mid and higher level qualifications, and that seemed to be a really good fit. Some of them went into engineering, which is what they desired. Some of them we lost because they couldn't go into engineering. Some of them we lost because normal attrition. But half of what of the kids that we brought in went on to be the really good junior technicians or exceptional machine operators. And you got the advantage that they were really bright. They're young kids. They want to make things go fast, and it gives you the opportunity then, where you've got some of your more mature and experienced people in your workforce, to maybe look to offer them a slightly different role, where they're more of a mentor and more of a coach. And again, that brings you back to the people seeing that if you've got Dan, who's been on that machine for 30 years, and he's maybe starting to come to the autumn of his manufacturing career, but he's not just cast aside and stuck on the baler. He's actually being used where you're going to get the most benefit from him. And he's there helping coach some of these kids, and he feels better. He sometimes maybe even gets a little bit of a reward for it. But you've got the kids, and you say, you get that machine, you learn off that guy, you get it running faster than him, and I'll pay you what he gets. And you say to the more experienced guy, you bring him along and you show me that you can mentor, and we'll see what we can do for you. And everybody wins. Everybody wins. And it just generates that whole ethos within the business, if you're lucky enough to be able to do it, to create some sort of I dare say meritocracy, where if you do well, you get on. It's as simple as that. And if you contribute, you get on. And if we all do that, we all share the benefits of it. I just think it's a no-brainer. I just think young people in your business is just such it just helps so much. It just brings so much to the table.
Well, Mike, thank you so much indeed. It's been fascinating chatting with you. I guess the takeaway here really is, here we are sitting this first week in January, is let's not panic. Let's get all the stuff done that we need to, or we maybe have overlooked during November and December. Get our house in order. Don't get rid of your people. The industry will be set, ready for March, April. We know it. We've seen it year on year on year for the last 2, 3, 4 decades. So, Mike, thanks ever so much indeed. And we'll look forward to catching up with you again very soon.
Yeah, absolutely, Dan. Just everybody be positive. Like all cycles, they go down and they come back up, and it will come back up. And let's all get ourselves ready to take advantage of that. So take care, and we'll see you again soon.